What's going on, YouTube fam, and welcome back to another video. And today we are going to be speaking about the issue of trusting police officers in Latin America. Now, many of you who have experience in Latin America, live here, visited, or just you do your research, you'll know that in Latin America, there's a lot of issue of corruption amongst police. That's not going to say that all police are bad, because they're not, but it's something that has been in this region for a long time. And you could contribute that to other things in the world too, like certain areas of the world share similar problems or issues or whatever when it comes to how their society is run. So this video is to brief you in, so for you to kind of get an idea of what it is that's going on and what people have been talking about and how you can avoid that. And I'll give you a little bit of my experience as well, what my encounters with police in several countries in Latin America. So let's get right into it. Basically, the situation is what mostly happens. Some unsuspecting tourists, gets themselves in a situation. Maybe now this is just a crazy example. Maybe they got too drunk and they started acting stupid and causing a problem. Police came to them, took them away, say, hey, listen, either you pay us or you go to jail. That's one thing. Or, they'll find a way to extort money from you. You know what I mean? Whatever, however it may be. But that's a common one. Somebody may be acting unruly, or maybe, some of them are just straight up bold enough to walk up to you and just be like, hey, like, you were doing something illegal, and you as a foreigner, you're like, what? And the thing about it is that if you are from there, or if you have spent significant time there and you know how the law works, and you say that to them in a respectful way, they're going to back off a bit because they know they can't play you. But if you're just unsuspecting and you have an issue with police for whatever reason, you got into that issue, then you don't want to be on the other side of that, because it's not going to be good. You could be in a jail cell, get busted up. Like, I've seen some extreme stories and I've seen some like not so extreme stories. So basically one of the reason is, the stigma is that around Latin America, police officers are not paid very well unless they're working like the special unit, special unit, how can I say this, like detectives and like more of the top dogs, captains and everything. They get paid a decent wage. But your average everyday police officer that you see patrolling the street, it's not getting paid that well. Now, it depends too, because for example, here in Mexico, state to state, the police officers have different salaries. So it really depends on what state you're in and for your, to determine your salary. And of course, other places, the regions of the countries that they're in. So it's like that. Now, I don't want to go and say that, okay, you're going to have an issue at some point, so just be prepared, because I've never had an issue of trying to be extorted or anything like that. And I'm clearly a foreigner in Mexico, you know what I mean? So I've never had that issue, just speaking of Mexico, but in general, and my other experiences. So let me break down to you what not to do, all right? If you're going to be traveling and doing something, let's say you're going out, you have a little party, you have a little drink, don't get too crazy, because you may find yourself in a situation. And just know, if you have a problem with the local, police get called, it's not always going to swing in your favor, you know what I mean? It really just depends on what police shows up. So it could be a sticky situation, but most of the things are like, like demanding money from you, like threatening to hold you or take you to jail if you don't pay them a bribe. That's a very common one. Stealing your stuff. I don't know, maybe you got pulled over, maybe you got into some situation where, the police were called and then they just take your stuff and then they let you go. There's stuff like that's been happening in all kinds of countries. So those are the most common things. That's not like violence or anything like that. I mean, I've heard some stories of people getting beat up, but I don't hear that much. But lately, it's been a hot topic on social media as well, in the travel community and expat community. People sharing their stories about, oh, I was in this particular place and the police robbed me and this and this and that. And I even know a good friend of mine who got caught up in that because, of course, they were with some other people in Cancun that got rowdy and messed it up for all of them, and then they ended up getting extorted by the police. It was a crazy story, but generally you won't have an issue. And actually, in my opinion, there's a lot of trustworthy police officers in Latin America, despite the title of the video. You know what I mean? So I'll break down to you really quickly my experience with police in Latin America. So in terms of having conversations or interactions with them. Now, as much as I love Brazil, and y'all know how much I love Brazil, if I haven't said it before, I absolutely love Brazil. But that's the worst experience with police officers I had. And I'll give you the quick story. So I was teaching English there. I think this is around 2012, 2013, early 2013. And I was working for an English school, so me and a couple other teachers, there was a bar that was like just a couple blocks over. It's like, well, if we finished our classes, it was Friday, y'all, let's go grab some drinks. It's like, okay, cool. So it was like four of us, and then we're walking down the street, and out of nowhere, this police car pulls up. Two cops, one just pulls up, it's like, hey, put your hands up. And I'm like, what? Like, get your hands up in the air right now. And I'm just like, okay, all right. You don't have to tell me twice. So apparently, this is what their story was. Like, they didn't steal anything from us or take anything. They thought we were suspects. But the way they went about it was just ridiculous. They just pulled the gun on you, like straight up at you. There was just a gun in your face, like assuming that you were guilty. They didn't say, hey, stop. And then, you know what I mean? If they felt threatened, like draw a weapon, they rolled up. I mean, dude rolled up with a pistol at the passenger. The cop was driving another one out the passenger and just pulled on us. And this was at night. Might have been like 7 something at night. So it was already dark. And I'm like, wow. So then, of course, they ask us, what are you doing, where you going? And all kinds of stuff like that. And this was the police. It's called Polícia Militar in Brazil. Polícia Militar is the military police, but they get paid the worst, and they have the worst training out of all the police divisions. So they have a reputation. So those of you you understand what I'm talking about. So then that happened, right? And it gets crazier. So then after that, a couple words exchanged. They let us go. They claimed some kid was kidnapped, and they were stopping everybody whatever. So all right, we'll let go. All right, now we really need a drink because that was crazy. We just had guns stuck in our faces. So then we get down the block, we're almost at the place, and then another group of police stop us. And the crazy thing is, they weren't as callous, but it was just like, okay, what's going on? So we got stopped, we get questioned again. And mind you, the bar's only like 2 blocks over that way. Like, we're almost there. So then, it was this and that was going on. And then, finally, after they were questioning us and interrogating us, let us go. But the funny part about that is that as we were being stopped, those 2 police officers that stopped us before rolled right by and didn't say anything. They didn't say, oh, no, we just checked those guys, they're good. They just looked at us and kept driving. They didn't even care. That's how crazy that was. They knew that they had just 5 minutes ago, stopped us and questioned us, but they didn't even tell them. So that was an unfavorable experience. At that time, and this was in São Paulo, in Brazil. So other than that, I didn't really have much interaction with police officers in Brazil, even though I did meet a crazy police officer he was a wild dude. Let's just say that. And yeah, it was an interesting night, but hanging out with the friends, and he was just a wild police officer, and he was one of the higher ranking ones as well. But that was that. Now in Uruguay, I had a great experience. The police officers were very helpful, younger staff, and they were joking around with me, just having a good time and lighthearted. You know what I mean? I asked for directions. They pointed me right where I needed to go. So it was a good experience. Now, in Colombia, it was really, really good experience because I remember when I had got there, right? So I got to Medellin, I got, took, from a taxi or whatever, and I'm looking for my hostel. And since it was a new hostel at the time, there wasn't a lot of information on Google. So a lot of people didn't know. There wasn't like a big sign, So the cab driver had brought me through there, but I didn't really see where it was. So we went back to like a little square, and there were some police officers there. And I asked them about it, and they went and they called the hostel for me just to verify that was that. And we had a little conversation, and they were just super relaxed, super cool. And I was like, okay, yeah, and they helped me out. They didn't have to do that, but they did. So that was a good experience that I had in Colombia with the police officers, and dealing with the police officers in Mexico. Now, when I used to live in Mérida in Yucatan, which is the safest state in Mexico, I remember just walking by, and something simple as going down a crosswalk, and as the pedestrians have the right of way. I remember the police motorcycles will stop and let me cross, and they were like super nice. And they, some would wave, like never stop me or pull me over. I mean, never, no problems, nothing like that. Never had any issues. Here in Guadalajara, well, let me start with Mexico City. In Mexico City, they're very approachable. Then, I asked them about something that was going on, and we just had a little back and forth conversation. Normal, weren't imposing, weren't like trying to intimidate or anything like that. One time I got stopped in Guadalajara, this was in 2022. I went out by myself just to get a few beers at one of the famous areas of town where they have a lot of bars. And I'm just coming back, in the Uber, and literally they're like 1 block away from my apartment. Like the light's right here, and all I have to do is just get out and just cross the street, and I'm already there. So then we were at the red, we were at that light. I'm turning. It was like, oh, and then the driver said something, and then the motorcycle cops came. So I was just, respectful and everything. And they were asking the driver, oh, where was he coming from and where am I going and everything like that. So then they asked me to get out the car, but they were polite. They didn't say, get out of the car, nothing like that. I was like, all right, cool, no problem. The quicker we do this, the quicker it's gonna be fine. So they asked me, oh, where are you going? I'm like, I live right there. If you want, you can verify it with the doorman. Where are you from? I'm from the United States, but I'm a Mexican resident. I showed him my residency card. They just plaqued me down. And before he did it, he was like, okay, now I'm gonna search you, okay? You know what I mean? And it was just super simple. And after that, now it's funny, I had packs of incense. They even opened up my incense boxes to look to see if I had any illegal substances. But even in that interaction, they were respectful, they were polite, they were doing their job. So I would just say, okay, well, just be respectful. Let them search me. I'm not guilty of anything. I don't have anything to hide. And then I'll go roam right across the street, just walk across the street. And it was like that. And after that, they said, have a good night. And that was it. Nothing scary. Nobody tried to rob me. And it was at nighttime too. And, in the center of the city, basically. All good. So that's the experiences that I've had with cops. So far good, and I've heard other people that's had worse. And the moral of the story is they are approachable if you need help. You know what I mean? In any major city, for example, Santiago or Chile in general, their police force is known as being very honest. So there you're not going to be bribing and doing any of that stuff. So that's one place that you can approach a police officer and they're going to be professional and respectful, all right? Now, overall, I think you can trust police officers here because, people are people. So there's good people that want to do good no matter where you are in the world. But just be careful and don't put yourself in situations where you're all drunk, sloppy drunk, starting fights or, just don't put yourself in any place where something crazy can go down and you should be fine. Like I said, just be respectful. The better you are with them, the nicer you are, is the easier things are going to be. People like to argue back and forth and this and this and that. That's only going to make it worse, So I think in Latin America, in my experience, for those 4 countries, I've actually had interactions with police outside of the Brazil one. I've been pretty positive, overwhelmingly. And yeah. So, if you're lost or you're whatever, the police officers are approachable. They're not all crazy, ready to pull their gun. You just say, excuse me, ask them the question. They'll give you the answer and you're on your way. All right. So do your research wherever you're going, though, in Latin America to see what that culture is like, because it's different, country to country. But know it exists, but I wouldn't say the average person is going to be a victim of that. It happens, but I think it's just kind of like any other anomaly, bad things happen, people are bad, it is what it is. So I hope y'all found this video informative. If you're going to Latin America, just know that, you can approach the police and it's not all outright chaos, all right? You don't have to worry about that. Other than that, y'all, I appreciate you tuning in for this video and y'all stay safe and I'll catch you on the next one.